Hi there, Pete here from Radio.co. Quick question for you. Has a guest on your show ever gone off script, given long-winded answers, or quite simply just been boring? Well, that's what we're going to solve today. 5 mistakes bad radio guests make, and easy ways to avoid them and make good guests. 5. They're boring. No one wants to listen to a boring person, right? How you tell stories matters. Engaging audiences, listeners, is really important. So when a guest strays into mundane waters, nobody wins. Popular UK host Graham Norton once said he feels bored, and when guests are talking for long bits, he zones out. But broadcast consultant Valerie Geller says it best.
I believe there are no boring stories, only boring storytellers. Nothing in this life is boring if you have somebody who's interested in communicating and telling that story.
So just like bumpers and bowling alleys, you've got to bounce your guests back in the right direction. And if they go off with long tangents answers, be snappy, ask some quick questions and get them back on track. Or you could even inject your own opinions, just like we do on our Matchmaker.fm podcast, Matched.
And then equally, when you get their response, sometimes you're like, uh-oh, that's a nut job, I don't want to interview them.
Okay, so that brings us on nicely to how have you used the platform and what kind of connections have you made?
And that's what radio is all about, just sharing your opinions you're passionate about. Just remember one thing Valerie Geller once said. Never put something on the air if you can't ask the question, why would someone want to listen to this? 4. They give long answers. There's nothing wrong with guests giving long answers. Sometimes it's really good. But when they go off on a long tangent, the point can be lost.
I think I like the writing part the most, and what inspired it. I think it's hard to not have influences from like what you grew up listening on. I think that's I think everyone reacts differently to like different types of music, and then really I think
Short answers allow listeners to digest what was said. So stepping in to freshen up the question and keep people on track is ideal. Unless they disappear like they did on the Rick and Bubba show, leaving you, as the host, to completely fill a void. But I don't know about you, I just love the image of all of these presenters wondering and having concerns where the guest has gone, famously now known as Dave.
Dave and Jasper. Dave, welcome to the Rick and Bubba show. Go ahead. Hey, Dave. Jasper, Alabama.
Dave.
Hey, Dave.
Hey, guys. Hey, y'all. Please don't hang up.
Dave. Dave.
I want to hear him, like, shuffle for the phone.
What in the world? That is the guy.
I hope he's okay.
Yeah. Dave? You think Dave's falling asleep?
I don't know. I hope Dave's okay. I do, too. We got to put him on hold and come back to him a little bit later.
Or when you have callers and they hang up when they're pressed for a good answer, like this time on LBC.
So, briefly, because, it's not going great, but I'd like you to stick around for a little bit longer. What is it you liked about him, Stephen?
I think that he come out and spoke a lot of the truth on stuff.
Yeah, what stuff? Stephen's hung up.
3. They're alarmists. Strange question now, and we're going back, but do you remember in the year 2000 when everyone thought computers were going to have a bug and crash? Or even when we thought the world was going to end in 2012? Or, most recently, the COVID pandemic? Stories like this get overinflated by alarmists. People who like to big up situations to get panic going amongst people. Now, this isn't always a bad thing. Heated debate makes for interest in watching and listening. Yeah, we all love it. But when handled poorly, it can get out of situation.
Back to my question to you. You purport to be an objective journalist. BBC purports to be an objective down-the-middle network. It obviously is not. It never has been. And you as a journalist are proceeding to call one side of the political aisle ignorant, barbaric, and sending us back to the dark ages. Why don't you just say that you're on the left? Is this so hard for you? Why can't you just be honest?
Mr.
Seriously,
Shapiro,
it's a serious question.
Mr. Shapiro, if you only knew how ridiculous that statement is, you wouldn't have said it. So let's move on. Would you vote for Mr.
I think it's pretty evident from your own questions exactly what you're...
But when handled correctly, conversations can play out completely differently. Framing the question in the right light and responding respectively shows you care, even though you and we may disagree with their question or opinion. So take the guest we talked about a minute ago, Ben Shapiro, but on the Russell Brand show.
So don't you agree with me, Ben, that neither of these options are in alignment with our higher principles? You and I, as both as men who like self-declared men of God, and therefore, why are you out to bat so vociferously for one of those sides?
Right. So I think that I have a couple of points to make here. One,
I bet you do.
Oh, yeah. One is that...
Just like long answers, complex ones can often alienate the listeners as well. But this generally does depend on your show and audience type. So for mass appeal, I would recommend short, witty, fast answers, and also stay off any complicated subjects, unless, however, that's what your listeners want. For example, on the Joe Rogan podcast, when Elon Musk kept getting sidetracked and lost in thought.
Kind of the primitive brain, essentially. You've got the cortex. So you're currently in a symbiotic relationship. Your cortex and limbic system are in a symbiotic relationship. And generally people like their cortex and they like their limbic system. I haven't met anyone who wants to delete their limbic system or delete their cortex. Everybody seems to like both.
1. They leave their humour at the door. There's nothing worse than telling a joke for it to fall flat or silent. So having a good sense of humour and bouncing ideas around goes a long way. But some guests can make things really awkward. Take, for example, Harrison Ford, who is known for giving stilted interviews and one-word answers.
I read a lot of... first of all, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Okay, good. All right, that's more than...
One really tries to make his money trying to look like you. Is that flattering?
No.
The point is, you aren't always going to get comedians or the best guests on your show. The best you can hope for is to try and get a guest to play along and just go with it. So test the waters by going down a few different angles. Tell a few jokes, tell a few funny stories, anecdotes, whatever. And see what gets that guest really going. You will get some guests, even Harrison Ford, to laugh.
Harrison, when you got that call to say, listen, we're making another Blade Runner and we want you to be in it, what was your reaction?
So what?
And that about wraps things up for today. You're always going to get a bad guest. Nothing we can do to stop that. But there are a few little tricks we've talked about in this interview which can get them back on track and make that interview just a little bit better. In saying that, I'll be really interested in hearing your bad stories or even the good moments on your interviews. So do let us know in the comments below. And for more radio guides and insights like this, the good and the bad ones, be sure to like and subscribe for more. Until next time, take care and happy broadcasting.
Hey, I'm James, founder of Radio.co. Before you go anywhere, I've got an interesting question for you. Do you know the difference between a radio station that launches and becomes very successful, gets lots of listeners and does very well, and a radio station that perhaps kind of doesn't launch very well and disappears within a few months, doesn't really get much attention? Well, I've put together a checklist which will illustrate to you in a very simple way the 5 key differences between radio stations that launch, do well, versus radio stations that launch and kind of disappear. You can download your free copy over at radio.co/checklist today. Find out exactly how you can make the most out of your radio station. That's radio.co/checklist. Go and grab your free copy. I'll see you there.